Hello and welcome back to NJCDC's The Loft. Today we're here back with Compete for Life. I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, Brian Miranda. Brian.
Thank you so much, Danny. Thank you for the very cool introduction for me. And from Compete for Life, as one of our program participants, we have here with us a recurring face. We have here Steven, and also observing us do our thing, we have Alberto and O'Neill. So, yeah. So today, last time we did this episode, we were with Imani and Steven, and we kind of spoke about, horror movies and just movies in general. A lot of the topics that we were talking about was, like I said, horror movies. We were talking about movies based off of video games and just other source material. This episode, however, we are going to be taking a more centered approach in talking about Halloween and all things Halloween. So this is going to be, as it was last time, this is going to be a more laid back kind of conversation. So
Sure.
Now that we have Steven here, Steven, introduce yourself to the people, to the good people.
What would I say?
Tell the people who you are, man.
Just tell the people who you are.
Who are you?
I'm someone who doesn't celebrate Halloween as much. I guess that's why I'm here.
That's true. This is true. Steven is a person that doesn't celebrate Halloween as much, which is really interesting because we're going to get into it. We're going to get
into the
into
whole topic of like what we're going to be talking about here anyways.
Yeah.
Right. But we won't just be talking about Halloween, but we'll also be talking about like horror and things like that. So I know Steven is very well versed in these things. So, but kind of right off the bat, and I guess I'll ask Steven this. So Steven, since you've now let us all know and you've let all the public know that you don't celebrate Halloween, I'm going to ask you, is that like a thing, like you've never celebrated Halloween ever in your life, or was there a point?
I don't think I've ever celebrated it, but I have like participated in like those Halloween events and parties and like places.
Gotcha.
Is that like in your high school life, or you mean like as a kid, like there was a small little party, little get together kind of thing, Because I feel like you have Halloween parties no matter what stage you are in life. Do you go to Halloween parties now, or is it just the trick-or-treating you're not really messing with?
When I think of like Halloween or like the parties you guys are talking about, it's like my schools would do like some type of Halloween event for the children. Like the only times I remember celebrating a Halloween related party is a Halloween parade I did in grade school.
Gotcha.
And the Halloween party we had it in Compete for Life.
Gotcha. Awesome. That's interesting. When you did those Halloween parties, when you were the Halloween parade when you were in elementary school, did you dress up?
No,
you didn't dress. Have you ever dressed up?
I tried to dress up by putting on a jacket and saying I was a biker, so that way no one would make fun of me.
There you go.
Cool.
Fair enough.
That's cool. So you've never dressed in a costume before at all? No. Interesting.
But it was really cool seeing my classmates like dressing up, and I kind of wanted to do that because I thought it was kind of cool. But it was Halloween, so I wasn't allowed to do that. Right.
So, do you feel like this is something? Are your parents telling you that you shouldn't be celebrating Halloween, or is this something that you yourself?
I mean, like,
want to adhere to?
I was like told to not celebrate Halloween because it's my religion.
Right.
But for me, I don't think I would celebrate it. Not because I don't like it. I don't see myself going out with friends, I guess. But I don't know how to explain it.
Okay, fair enough.
But I would go out with my friends if they asked me to, because it sounds like a good time.
Let me ask you a question really quickly. So say if it was like a Comic-Con and people were like doing cosplay and stuff, is that something you would like participate in?
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess it's just because it's Halloween. I've grown used to not celebrating it.
Okay, like specifically Halloween. Like in December, if there's a Comic-Con and everyone's dressing up as like, Power Rangers, like, yo, that's me right there. That's all me. All right.
Okay. That's actually, God, Danny, it's like you and I are like right here. Because that's exactly what I was about to ask Steven just now. So Steven, if let's say you were invited to a Comic-Con and obviously you want to dress up as someone, right? Either it be anime or whatever. Who would you then dress up as?
Joker from Persona 5.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is oh man, I totally can see that.
Yeah, with the jacket.
Yeah,
and like the glow. Yeah, and the mask.
I already asked my mom for the costume. It's not for Halloween. I just think of it as like, cosplaying, like people would do at Comic-Con.
Yeah,
for
sure. But like more and more, and you guys can probably correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I feel like more and more for Halloween too. Like I always see like a bunch of anime characters walking around. Like I feel like Naruto is a big person that people dress up as in during Halloween. a lot of people obviously love to dress up as the Joker from the Batman series and things like that, Scarecrow. So like I feel like a lot of the things that people choose to dress up as in Halloween, they can also dress up as for like Comic-Con events as well, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
What are you guys gonna be for this Halloween?
Danny, you go first.
Yo, okay. So I don't think unfortunately, my my outside just party animal side of me has been very suppressed, like but so I don't think I'm gonna be dressing up for Halloween or really going out or doing anything besides hanging out with some of the homies, maybe play some horror games, like prior to us starting, we were talking about Dead by Daylight. I'll probably play some of that with the homies,
Right.
some scary, something spooky,
Something horror related, I guess.
Yeah,
Right.
I guess so.
Right.
Yeah, keeping it, 'tis the season, so.
I guess for me, I had this whole idea that I was gonna see, like, what's interesting about me, and I guess people like me, is that for Halloween I kind of look at it as like I don't really dress as like any kind of horror figures.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, so for this Halloween in particular, I was gonna dress up as like my favorite rapper,
Okay.
and his name was was MF Doom. I say was because he did unfortunately pass away. R.I.P.
Oh, I've heard of that guy.
Yeah. So I was gonna dress up as him and just kind of walk around Patterson like dressed as MF Doom, but he's not exactly a scary guy.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not
Yeah, because
exactly
like
a
the whole
scary
point of Halloween is
costume.
that you dress what you want to be. It doesn't have to be horror related.
Right. I think that's a common misconception too, like, because I think when you think about Halloween, people automatically assume that they have to dress as something like scary.
They ask what you want to be.
Right. So, but sometimes I do think that like subconsciously people are just like, oh, all right, like I have to
be scary.
Yeah. But so that's probably what I'll be doing. I also I'm very much like Danny at that point too. Like I'll be playing probably like a lot of horror games. Like, actually right now I'm playing Silent Hill 2 remake, which is really cool.
If we were to bring up horror games, who's your main killer in Dead by Daylight?
Ooh, okay. All right. So Dead by Daylight, for those who don't know, is like basically like they have a lot of different horror.
Put us on, Danny. Put us on.
Villains. It's like one person plays as a killer, 4 other people play as like survivors trying to escape. And you have killers like Michael Myers. You could be like Freddy Krueger. They have like their own original roster. For me, I much rather play as the one running away, trying to escape from the killer. But Ghostface is a fun character to play
from Scream.
Yeah, from Scream.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then Michael Myers, I think I like playing too. And they also have Leatherface or Bubba.
Nice.
Boy Bubba,
Yeah, I think for me, I would much rather like to play as like an iconic, scary figure. So they have Jigsaw in there too, right? Like,
they have the pig. They have the pig.
Yeah, the pig, right?
Because obviously you can't play as John Kramer.
Right.
Yeah. He's just gonna be sitting in a.
He's gonna have to fit it on.
No. That's
to be the young John Kramer.
I guess that's what's cool, because when you play as the pig, he's just someone who's working as. So he has like the saw traps, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't played as him myself. For me, I'd play as Chucky or Deathslinger.
I forgot they added Chucky into the game.
Chucky.
Who they're releasing. I quit that game, and the reason why I got back on it was because next summer they're releasing a Five Nights at Freddy's collab, and that's been like,
nice.
Listen, man. Since I started playing the game, I'm like, yo, we need a Five Nights at Freddy's character in here, man. And then I thought it was never gonna happen, and then it happened, and now I'm like freaking out.
So who's the character?
It hasn't been announced, but I imagine it's gonna be Springtrap. Yeah, it's just like basically the purple guy, the main killer, the guy who did all the bad things and made all the haunted peoples. Listen, man. Listen, we could dedicate 5 whole podcasts or more.
Full
He's gonna make 5 whole episodes. As to why they have to add Springtrap.
Just Five Nights at Freddy's lore in general.
Is the lore that deep for Five Nights?
The lore is that deep.
Really?
That's the reason why. The lore is probably like the main reason why. I mean, the games are good.
Yeah.
But the lore is the reason why it's been existing for so long.
I had no idea.
I think game theory for that.
Because
there's a game theory for it.
There's like 50 game theories for, not even a joke, for Five Nights at Freddy's, because it's like they don't outright say the lore. It's like the lore is like hidden, and you have to try to piece it together, right?
Well, that's good storytelling.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
I've always heard about Five Nights at Freddy, and I know that they made the movie for Five Nights at Freddy. Have any of you guys seen? I know we spoke about
the
it.
movie.
I've seen it
too. Pretty good. Some
I liked
people
it.
say
you saw it
wasn't good.
Yeah,
I think it's good if you're a Five Nights at Freddy's fan. If you're not, maybe you won't have the best experience. But like, it's really just made for the fans, but just for the fans, I suppose.
But that's the thing. Yeah, like I think from people that I know, they are fans. I guess maybe bigger fans than me of Five Nights at Freddy's. and they didn't enjoy the movie, I guess, because it just wasn't relevant to the game.
Right.
But like, there's a
Interesting.
bunch of media from Five Nights at Freddy's that don't have like a game. Like that doesn't have to do with the continuities of the games because Five Nights at Freddy's at this point has become a multimedia franchise where you have like,
which is crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's like you have the games, but they also have
The books.
But also they have like,
Oh,
it's
wow.
weird. They have like an activity book,
Mhm.
that's maybe like might look like it's just for kids, but then like ends up there's lore in the activity book that's like super duper important for like.
So it is really deep. Like,
Yeah, it's
really
it's
deep.
crazy.
You have the regular games.
Yeah.
You have the VR games.
Oh yeah, the VR
Oh,
You have
games.
the newer. You have the newest one that came out, the
That
Into the
makes
Pit.
sense.
Oh yeah, Into the Pit.
All right.
Yeah.
So here's my question to y'all then.
If
The lore, so the Five Nights, we're over here saying that the lore in Five Nights at Freddy is really deep, right?
Yes.
Can you guys tell me in like 30 seconds or less, just give me a quick summary of what the lore is?
I could do it, but I think I want to get. You want this? You want to try this? What?
I can't.
You
I can't.
can't?
Do that. I don't know. I only know like the basic stuff.
Okay.
Just tell me
All
the
right.
basic stuff.
All right. So basically, there was these two guys that like basically that made this franchise, Chuck E. Cheese-esque franchise,
Right.
Called was it Fredbear's Family Diner? That was the name of the franchise, and then they had like an animatronic bear and an animatronic bunny, and they're both yellow bear and yellow bunny, right? But the suits themselves, they're like
controlled by the person.
Well, yeah, you can.
They could.
So the suits double. Yeah,
They could be an animatronic, or you could be in the suit.
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
And
I see.
in order to be in the suit, the whatever machinery that's inside kind of like opens up.
Right.
But the problem is the machinery is like very like sensitive, so like it can fail, and then like you basically get trapped, get killed.
Gotcha.
Right. So
interesting. That sounds horrific.
Yeah, and then basically one of the guys who made the franchise killed a bunch of people.
Oh, so he's a serial killer.
Yeah, he's a serial killer. And
Cool.
people have different theories on exactly why he did it, either because he was angry or he's trying to do experimentation on how to like for eternal life, and because like he realized that the animatronics were getting haunted and stuff.
Right.
So it's a franchise that spanned like 10 years now, more than 10 years.
Oh wow.
So
That's pretty old.
yeah, I know. It's hard to unpack 10 years of knowledge
Of
and
lore. Yeah.
into Five Nights into like 30 seconds, right? There's a lot of multimedia franchises like Five Nights at Freddy's. Like Friday the 13th had a game come out.
They also had a game.
Yeah.
Didn't they
I
have
think-
a game? Yeah.
I think unfortunately it got shut down.
It got taken down.
Yeah.
Why?
But I think they lost the rights to
Yeah.
Jason and stuff.
Yeah, so the rights
Which
to
makes
Jason
sense.
Voorhees has
Right.
been like super
But
like
isn't he also a playable character in Dead by
Recent-
Daylight?
no,
Actually,
he's not.
he's
No?
not.
He's
He's
like
not.
the only guy that's not in there. I realized.
That's so crazy.
Yeah,
I
because-
feel like
because of
he
the
would be a
licensing.
shoo-in. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
because
so wild.
yeah, they have Michael Myers, which is like probably like I would say the next
The
best
next
thing.
closest thing.
But I think honestly they might add Jason Voorhees because recently there was a game that's not a horror game called Multiverses, right? And it's basically like Warner Brothers.
Like Super Smash Bros.
Yes,
right?
Smash Bros. Equivalent, right?
Right.
And they recently got Jason Voorhees in that game, right? So people are saying like maybe they figured out with the rights issues, maybe we could get Jason Voorhees in Dead by Daylight and all these other games that they want.
Interesting.
Or we're getting
Interesting.
FNAF instead.
Jason Voorhees and Five Nights at Freddy's. Nah, get out of it.
That'd be an
That'd be funny.
interesting.
And usually, like all the
crossover.
killers that come out throughout the game, they have some type of survivor that comes with it.
Right.
One. that
Yes,
my
this is
brother
really well
got-
thought out. Wow.
Yeah.
One that my brother got. I actually wanted to get Wesker at some point.
Oh,
From Resident Evil?
Yeah, they have
Yes.
Wesker and Nemesis.
Oh, that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and then they got Leon,
Ada.
Leon S. Kennedy. They have Claire.
Damn.
They have Carlos.
Dang.
They have.
Resident Evil is like
They even
one
got
of my favorite
Hunk.
horror games. No way.
But like, thing is, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure Hunk is a costume for one of the killers or something.
Yes,
Mm.
yes.
And it's
That
like
makes
you're being
sense.
hunted down by him instead.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Damn, I might have to jump back.
Yeah, it's
into-
a great game. It's a
into
great
Dead by
game.
Daylight.
You know you guys played Resident Evil 2, right? Like
Of
the
course.
remake.
Yes,
Of course.
Yeah. So have you played the Hunk, the fourth survivor mode?
Yes.
I have
So,
not.
I remember that it was basically after the game ended.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happened is that they call him the Grim Reaper,
Mhm.
and he had to get out. I think it takes about like 5 to 15 minutes. I didn't play it myself. My brother did. But something I know is that it's like really hard
Yeah.
because he goes up against like all the types of enemies
Right.
and
right,
like Mr. X.
right.
And in the ending, they thought he was dead, but they call him the Grim Reaper because he can't die.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I think, and what's interesting about Hunk too is that, yeah, like you're right. Like at the end of his campaign story in Resident Evil 2, he's presumed dead, but like we know that he's not dead. And I think even more so in Part 4, Resident Evil Part 4, if he doesn't have his own like little campaign thing, he's a playable character in Resident Evil 4's mercenary mode.
Is that are you talking about the remake or the original?
Both.
Okay. Yeah.
Both. Yeah. Both. He's a playable character in the mercenaries mode in Part 4 for sure. I know that for sure. And I think in the remake they might have made a campaign for him just to like further explore the story.
I don't think so.
No, it wasn't.
But I did play the remake for Resident Evil 4.
Yeah. I played it too. That was really fun.
I remember playing the mercenaries mode, and that was like really fun.
Yeah.
And I remember you have to like get S rank for like all of the characters in every map.
Yeah.
And that kind of made the game a little too easy for me because it gave me this overpowered like hand cannon.
Yeah, like he's OD. He's overpowered.
Yeah, he's a monster, man. He's a monster.
Because I remember how like all the characters, they all have like their like super ability that they could use.
Yeah.
And then only Hunk has this thing where he has like, you know, the takedowns that they have.
Yeah.
I've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Only he has this thing that could insta kill not only the regular enemies, obviously, but also like the big boys.
Right.
So let me ask you a question. So for me personally, right? Earlier before we started talking about this, I said one of my favorite games, horror games, was Outlast because.
Oh, right.
And the reason why that's one of my favorite horror games is because you don't have a weapon to defend yourself with, right? And I did play Resident Evil 4 remake, right? Do you think that like one? I'll ask you, what's your favorite? It was. Did you say your favorite horror game was Dead by Daylight?
Oh
I
no,
guess,
that was like a game that I played that like I'm pretty sure other people know about.
Okay. So what would you say is your favorite horror game? And is it a game like Resident Evil where you have like a handgun protecting you, or is it like something where you're running away from an enemy and you can't defend yourself at all?
I would say my favorite horror game is a Resident Evil game, but it's actually Resident Evil 7 where you play as Ethan Winters.
Oh man, Resident Evil 7.
I remember when that game came out, everyone talked about how like it's just different from Resident Evil.
Yeah.
And they didn't like Ethan as the main character.
Right.
Have you guys played Village?
Yes, I've played it. I played 7 and Village. Yeah.
You finished it, right?
Yes.
Because like I'm going to say a spoiler right here.
Go right ahead.
So people talked about how they didn't like Ethan Winters at first, right?
Yeah.
And then, he sacrificed himself to save his daughter.
Right.
And then people were sad over that. So like, I don't know. I guess that kind of just shows you how much
like a character can grow on you, right?
It's crazy.
Well, I feel like Resident Evil 7 was definitely a lot more like the horror elements in Resident Evil 7 was much stronger than in past games. Like if you showed me Resident Evil 2, for example, right? Like I'm let's say the remakes, just for sake of argument, I would say Resident Evil 7 for me was a scarier game than Resident Evil 2 remake. Right. Just based
That's
off
a bold take.
I mean, because like just based off like the scares, right? And that could just be because of the first person point of view. Right. And it's also like, I think overall it was like much darker. Like for Resident Evil 2, you were in the police station the whole time for the most part. Right.
Right.
And there was like creepy and stuff, but like, I think the atmosphere inside of that old house by the river where everything's kind of like dark.
Talking about like the Resident Evil games, me being like Resident Evil 7, it's like number 1 for me.
Yeah.
So the lore behind that game, well, it's not a lot, but it is somewhat connected to Resident Evil's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Obviously, because at the ending of Resident Evil 7, you get saved by Chris.
Yeah.
And he doesn't look like Chris.
He doesn't.
Everyone talked
he
about
really
how
doesn't.
I remember when they released Village.
Yeah.
And people were like, "Oh my god, it's Resident Evil! It's Resident Evil!" because they saw the Umbrella logo.
Yeah. When I played Resident Evil 7, I too was kind of that group that was just like, I don't know if this is the type of Resident Evil game that I want to play, because I felt like they had switched the formula like too much. And what I mean by that is that like typically, and this, Resident Evil is typically like third person, whereas Resident Evil 7 switched to like a first person point of view.
That's another thing I like. In Resident Evil 8, they added the VR mode.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing for Resident Evil 7, but they also gave you a third person mode.
Yes.
So if you wanted to, it played like the Resident Evil 2 remake.
Yeah. Which is really dope. Yeah.
And you didn't see his face either. So that's pretty cool.
Like, it was always like camera over the shoulder kind of perspective, right? But then as I continued to play Resident Evil 7, I never had a problem with Ethan. I never had a problem with who he was, or like the fact that we were taking control of him and like delving into his story. But I just do remember thinking to myself, I was like, dang, if you take away that third person perspective from the game, it's kind of like not Resident Evil anymore. But I couldn't have been more wrong.
But you could also debate that Resident Evil 2 and 3, they were remakes of the original game. And those games had tank controls with fixed cameras at the corner.
True.
And that's what made the game scary.
Right.
So you could also debate that Resident Evil 2 and the original.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the remake could be scarier because of how dark and grim it looked.
Right.
And then the original was scarier because you don't know what was lurking around that corner that you couldn't see.
And it was just, that's a great point too, because in the original Resident Evil, like part 2 and part 3, and really just all the original Resident Evil games, they all had those tank controllers. And it's interesting too, because I remember reading like an article about that with the creators of Resident Evil, and they were just like, yo, like you guys made so many Resident Evil games, and we know that this has been a criticism of your games for so long, the fact that they play with like tank controllers. Like, why didn't you guys ever address that until like later on in the series? And the response they gave was really interesting. The response they gave was that like, oh, like, no, we are fully aware of the criticism about playing tank controllers with the old Resident Evil games, but we never switched it up until part 4 because we felt like playing with tank controllers in those games, in that environment, in that atmosphere, added more anxiety while you were playing the game.
I think Resident Evil, I don't know which one it was, but it was either that, I'm pretty sure it was Silent Hill though. Silent Hill 2, it did so well that Resident Evil and other games tried to replicate what that game did.
Yeah.
That could also be why.
Right. Yeah, and like I said earlier,
Silent Hill.
Now I'm playing Silent Hill, and it's
and it's also doing the third person perspective thing now.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because like in Resident Evil, I feel like the horror element is very much like, zombies and stuff like that, blah 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 blah. In Silent Hill, the monsters, I don't know what they are.
They're all like, I don't know how to explain it. They're like I don't
feelings
know. And like stuff.
Yes.
I forgot what you describe that as.
But it's like
a manifestation.
Yes.
Of his like feelings and like
which is interesting.
Thoughts.
That when I think about things like that, I'm just like, dang, that's kind of more scarier to me than like Resident Evil. Like, have you guys been seeing that meme that's been going around on the internet that's just like, and this is a wild choice, right? But the meme goes like, if you had to choose your best chances at survival, which city would you go into? Would you go into Raccoon City or would you go into Silent Hill?
That's a hard
choice.
That's
a tough one, right? Like,
because Silent Hill is also dependent on the person specifically.
Right. Also true.
So it takes your fears and stuff, I'm guessing, and like targets it towards you.
Yeah. That's true.
Your feelings of guilt, anger, sadness.
You know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like, you know how it says like Batman can meet anyone with prep time? Yes. It sounds like I'm walking to a place where the place has prep time on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm like, let me just
It already knows everything about you, so it uses that against you.
I know. Right. I mean, it sounds like Raccoon City, at least you would have, if you maybe knew certain spots to go to, or like at least if the zombies are like a little predictable, as long as you don't have like a Mr. X or a Nemesis chasing you,
right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
You should be okay.
And also that, I think you'd be safe from Nemesis and Mr. X. The one thing you'd probably have to worry about is the zombies and stuff, because Mr. X and Nemesis, they target the STARS members and stuff.
Exactly.
Remember.
Exactly, yeah.
But Leon wasn't a STARS member, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was targeted by Mr. X.
Yeah.
Not Nemesis. Nemesis targeted Jill because she was a STARS member.
Okay.
When you look around the corner, you see Nemesis running towards you.
Yeah, that was always a great.
That's why I didn't play the game.
Yeah.
But Mr. X still scared me.
Yeah.
But you could also debate on who's scarier. What do you guys think?
Oh man. Here's the thing with Mr. X, when like I saw him for the first time I experienced the Resident Evil games, or at least those older games, it was the remakes, right? And so I had the introduction for Mr. X was definitely very scary.
Because he kind of just broke through a wall.
Right. Yeah, he broke through a wall, but he's also like, his demeanor is like, I'm just going to walk towards you and like punch you, right?
Right.
But I also I didn't play the full Resident Evil 3 game. I played the demo for the remake, and I saw Nemesis, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to have to like run fast, I'll be okay. And all of a sudden, this guy's dashing towards me on the speed of light.
He looks back
and he has a rocket launcher, and I'm like, yo, what is going on right now? Like, why?
And that's why they made him a character.
Right. And Marvel's Capcom. That's right.
Yo, it was right. It was wild, man. It was wild.
I would say this: if we're trying to answer the question as to who's scarier, I would say this. I would say that in the old original games, in the old original Resident Evil games that came out for the PlayStation 1, Nemesis was definitely the scarier one between
because you had
X
tank controls and stuff.
and
So
Nemesis.
you actually have
Right.
to like, wait
Can
for
you
your
explain to me
character
what are tank controls? You
All
guys
right.
keep saying that?
So tank controls are basically your character's. Let's say your character's like turning, like he's looking straight ahead, right? You're in a room right now. So you'd have to like use the right joystick to make him move, like look left or right.
Oh.
And you could only use your left joystick to make him go forward or backwards.
Yes.
And that's all you could do. Like a tank,
Oh,
you know how
I
tanks
see, I see.
they first have to
Yeah,
move at a certain angle and they start moving forward.
Right.
They can even move forward or back. You can't stray for anything.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. Like they can't. They're in those games. There was no strafing involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you literally had to like
You had
move
to
your
wait
character
for
a
your character
direction
to turn around,
and then they can move.
Okay.
So
yeah.
if you could put that up to debate on the original game, the remake, you could actually they have things like quick turn and stuff,
Right.
that makes you like get out of like situations where you see a lot of enemies in front of you. Except in the original, you'd actually have to wait till your character just straight up turns around,
Right.
and then walk away.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're
But you're cooked.
you would,
like,
you would get wrecked.
Yes,
Get
you would
wrecked.
get wrecked. But no, like I was saying though, like in the original games, due to I think the tank controllers, Nemesis was definitely scarier because for whatever reason, Nemesis didn't have to abide by those rules. He was not, at least the way he was moving, wasn't like he.
all he had to do was just walk. He
Yeah.
just runs towards you and he locks onto you. I'm
Yeah.
sure. I didn't play it, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's what he did.
No, that's exactly what he did. But then when you look at the remakes, I'm gonna go ahead and say, so I played Resident Evil 2 remake and Resident Evil 3 remake, right? I'm gonna go ahead and say that Mr. X was scarier in the remakes over Nemesis in the remakes.
I think I might know why.
Go ahead.
You go first.
In Resident Evil 3 remake, right? Jill has this thing called like you could dodge
Yes,
and you could like move aside if
right,
Nemesis is like running towards you. Leon doesn't have that.
he doesn't. He doesn't.
So that's probably
That's
that
true.
could be one thing.
That's true. That's
what
true.
were you gonna say?
Majority of the time, if Resident Evil 2 remake, or Resident Evil 2, you are in the Raccoon City Police Department, right?
Right.
And so, but in Resident
Majority
Evil,
of the time.
yeah, majority of the time. But Resident Evil 3, you're kind of like moving around. You're kind of going from point A to point B. But since something I did remember from the Resident Evil 2 remake, was that sometimes you can hear Mr. X's footsteps
Yes.
outside of like either if he was like above you, like on the floor above you, you could hear it. Or if he was like, on the floor, like he was like an ever looming presence.
Near around.
Right.
You
Yeah.
just hear him walking around. And I guess what's scary is that the first encounter you have with him, after that, you're kind of just nervous about opening the next door that's in front of you because you don't know if he's in that room.
Yeah, and since it's like you are in that one space for majority of the game, I think that's what kind of played to the benefit of the scariness factor of
Right.
that game.
Right. Interestingly enough, yeah, like just kind of piggybacking off of something that you said with Resident Evil 2 remake, and I even think this was a thing in the first Resident Evil 2 games, but definitely in the Resident Evil 2 remake, as you're walking around the police department, you can hear Mr. X's like footsteps and stuff.
Yeah,
like
he's
that.
very
Like,
hefty footsteps,
and like I just remember thinking, and this is gonna sound corny, but I just remember thinking, I was just like, yo, is that Mr. X or is that my heartbeat? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, because I was just so like with Mr. X,
It just always had you on edge.
yeah, like you never knew when he was gonna turn up. If he sees you, obviously he's gonna charge next to you. I was always the type of player in Resident Evil 2 that like I was always low on ammo, so even if I did want to fight Mr. X, I couldn't really.
Some strategy I had while playing the Resident Evil games was that my brother had this thing where you always mixed a red herb with. I'm pretty sure a lot of people did that.
Yeah.
You mix a red herb with a green herb, and it always fully heals you. So when
Yeah.
you get to
Yeah.
moment you get to red, you use the green herb to
Right.
fully heal.
Right. Yeah, that was
but
a
if
good.
you have no ammo, you can't do nothing anyways, right? So it's like,
Yeah, and that's really like what I like about those games too. Like that's really like the survival horror aspect of it.
I
It's
think
just
that was
like
it, because in
yeah.
Resident Evil 2 and 3 or any of them, I guess there was always that one I think they're called stalker enemies. They just can't
Right.
die.
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
always that one enemy you can't kill.
Can't really kill. Like maybe you can stun
You
them,
can stun them for
Yeah.
like
But-
a few seconds.
but they can't die really. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's why I really like games like that because it's just like not only are you trying to figure out like how to avoid your enemies or how to like combat them, but like the resources that the games give you are very limited.
They make
Yeah.
you think about what you need to do
Right,
next.
right. And so like every zombie that you decide to kill, you should make sure is like should I really kill the zombie? Like, do I have to kill the zombie?
It's like one of those games where you have to do a certain choice and see
Right.
if it affects you later
Exactly.
Yeah, the resource management, you know.
Exactly. Yes, resource manager is totally.
And I'm
important
pretty
in these
sure the
games.
game's hardcore mode, they really push you to that limit.
Yes.
They only give you like way more limited resources.
Yeah, yeah. Every bullet counts. Every healing item counts.
And
Like
the
all that
enemies
stuff.
are faster.
Enemies are.
Mr. X was faster.
You're easier to kill. Like you take
Like,
damage.
I remember trying to get the platinum trophy for Resident Evil 7.
Yeah,
And you know that guy, Jack Baker?
Yeah.
He's
yeah.
the stalker enemy of that game until you kill him later on.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't even die. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But what happens is that I played the original game. I played the game normally, obviously. I played hardcore.
Right.
Or Madhouse, as they call it.
Right.
And he
That's
was
right.
way more faster. Like, he was walking. It looked like he had 2 times animation on.
Yeah.
He was walking at me 2 times. And I can't run either.
He was power walking at that point. I was just like, okay. But you know what's interesting too about Resident Evil 7? And I'm gonna bring it full circle, I guess, a little bit. But so you've played Resident Evil 7, right, Steven?
Favorite game.
When you were playing it, there was that point in the game where, like, I remember I was playing it and I'm just like, this is reminiscent to like Saw. Like some of the puzzles that they had was like kind of like Saw.
Actually, when I played Resident Evil 7, it was before I played Saw.
Oh, okay.
I think my brother already beat it, so I was like, it's there. I might as well try it out.
Right.
And I did, and it was actually one of the best experiences.
All of this is to say is that sometimes I think, like, obviously other horror movies are inspired by other horror, like, or rather, I'm sorry, other like horror games are obviously inspired by like horror movies that have come out in the time.
I was gonna say something earlier when we were talking about Resident Evil 7. You know how you said that apparently people were complaining about why didn't they change it to the third person earlier? Or like, why did they keep the tank controls?
Right.
They had 1, 2, 3, changed it at 4 to third person, 4, 5, 6, changed it to first person.
Right.
And people kind of just kept complaining about it. And how, like, people were like, at first it was zombies and stuff. Now it's just straight up monsters.
Right.
Like, the first 3 games, they were like monsters and creatures. 4, 5, and 6, it started to just be an infected kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, people complain about Resident Evil 7, but do you hear anybody mention 6?
6? No one talks about 6.
Exactly.
No one talks about 6. Like,
But for me, I enjoyed the game a lot.
Right.
Mainly because Leon was there, Chris was there.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-player cooperative experience.
Yeah.
And Resident Evil, what is it? Resident Evil 5. It was 2 players.
I love Resident Evil 5.
And it's way better when you're playing
with
somebody else, because you cannot rely on that. You can't rely on that.
You know what's interesting too? Like, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. A lot of people, I love Resident Evil 5, right? Like, and I will die on that hill. But I know a lot of the Resident Evil fan base, they have a big problem with part 5 because they said that that's kind of the game where Resident Evil shifted from horror to more like action. And like, you definitely see that in Resident Evil 5. Like, when I play Resident Evil 5, I like it not so much because it's scary, but more so because...
I'm sorry.
No, go on.
Is that the game, just for my own clarification, is that the game where the guy punches the boulder?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
They have this whole segment where you have to save your partner in order to make a path for her.
Yeah.
He gets to a boulder and he just starts going at
like
it.
punching it, like, okay.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
But Chris,
But like I guess the whole aspect of the game, it could be scary at times because, I don't know, for me, it was like when you're together, it's just fun.
Yeah.
Right. But the moment you get separated, it's scary.
It becomes and there are parts in the game where you do get separated from.
There are parts of the game where you know you're going to get separated, and you have to rely on your partner to take down enemies.
Yeah. Like, there was this whole segment when, who was the partner name? Sheva, right? Sheva, right? There's a part in that game where, like, you're Chris and he's like on some like this bridge kind of thing, but Sheva is like far away from you, but she has a sniper rifle. And as Chris is like traversing through this bridge, there are like these creatures, lickers, I think, are like trying to get at him. And so Sheva has to like pick them off with the sniper rifle.
There's a segment like that in Resident Evil 6.
Is it?
I don't think, you haven't, have you played it?
I played it once, but I played it so long ago and I just try and like forget that.
I think maybe you should at least try it again with somebody don't take it seriously. If you try to take it seriously, I think it might ruin the experience.
Yeah.
For me, I just remember playing the game and having fun because Unlike that's why I like Resident Evil 6 more than 2, 3, and the others, because it feels like even without ammo, you could you have your hands and you just go at it with the enemies.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Like, no, but you might be right. Like, I might have to give Resident Evil 6 another go. I just remember playing it all those many years ago for the first time, and I was just like, what is this? Like, it's not. It just didn't feel like Resident Evil anymore. It just felt like they were trying to make it into like this action adventure game that it wasn't.
And then they went back to the old horror element that they had.
And I think
people still complained about it.
Yeah.
So
they're bringing it back though with like the umbrella route, right? Because in the last and Resident Evil 8 Village, there was references. I think I saw like at the very end.
Yeah, Resident Evil 8 does a good job in like tying all of it together.
Yeah.
So that's cool. But I'm curious to see where the story is going to go now in Resident Evil 9. I know Resident Evil 9 has been announced, but I'm just like, is it still going to be first person?
The way they connect 7 to the other games is that it's like Chris works for Neo Umbrella.
Yeah.
And, they're trying to get rid of their past mistakes, apparently.
Which is interesting.
And so that's why they save Ethan. I guess they're just hunting down whatever that infection thing was called. I forgot what it was called.
But it wasn't
the mold.
The mold.
There we go.
But that was like connected to Umbrella. Though,
and it was also connected.
Kind of.
Yeah. It kind of was, but it was also kind of the reason.
Like it was like its own thing
for Village as well. Yeah. Because when you killed the enemies and bosses in villains, or in Village, when you kill the main enemies, like the main.
You're good.
The big bosses, when you defeat them, they just start crumbling.
They like dissolve.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And they dissolve into like, I guess because all those bosses were made by the mold, by Miranda, right? I guess just not wrapping up, but I do want to kind of shift away back to like a little bit more Halloween-y stuff. All of this kind of speaking about like the mold and like the T virus and the G virus. These are the things that in the game universe that turns all these people into like zombies and monsters and things like that. And I remember when I was a kid, not that I remember, but I remember I used to have such a sweet tooth when I was a kid. My mom knew this, right? And so one way that she tried to like wean me off of so much sweets was that she used to tell me that like, oh, like if you eat that, you're gonna turn into like some decrepit monster.
You're gonna get to T virus.
Yeah, like you're gonna turn into a zombie, like blah 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 blah. And for a while though, another thing about me too is that I'm morbidly scared of zombies. Like I feel like zombies are up there for me as like one of the scariest things that
apart from racism.
And apart from racism,
bringing it back. Let's go.
Apart from racism,
yes.
But zombies are like up there for me. And so kind of like bringing it back to the sweets, some of my favorite candies like growing up were like, Twix and Twizzlers and things like that. So, Steven, I know you have you ever gone trick-or-treating before or no? No. Well, would you ever consider giving candy out?
I would. I mean, I don't know if I would. I probably would give candy out.
Right.
I mean, I don't think I would go trick-or-treating though.
Right. What's your favorite, like if you were one of those people that did give out candies, what do you feel like you would want to give out? Like what kind of candies?
I want to be those people that give out like the king size candies.
Yes.
Nice.
Of course. That's awesome. What about you, Danny?
In my head, I was like, yo, I'm giving them apples. No, I'm just kidding. No, apples. No.
Just chuck apples in your bag.
Yeah, not even to give them. It's like, get out of my property.
Yeah. No, like, this is nature's candy.
Yeah.
Like,
no. Oh my God.
Yeah. Imagine.
I don't know. I think I would just get like a bunch of those variety bags and just like have a bowl and just like dump handfuls in there.
Just
please
take one.
Yeah.
No.
Have a camera ready.
Just take one.
Just take one. If they try taking one.
Oh, and I like dress up as like a scarecrow or something, and I'm like, I try to make myself look like a doll or a prosthetic something, and I'm just holding it there.
Oh, that'd be
wait
cool.
for someone to like snag some stuff up, and I'll be like, "What are you doing?"
Talking about like Halloween events, like we did at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Something I really did want to do was go to those Halloween events at like Six Flags or Universal,
Fright Night,
like what is it, Fright Fest and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember looking up videos where it's like, oh, they're doing like a Saw horror house.
Yes.
I'm like, you're telling me I missed that? It was like after I became a fan of it, and like it just sucks.
So that's something that you would be interested in doing. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Do they still do that, or they just stopped?
I'm not sure.
I don't know, like with Saw, I always just think like something that's so akin to it is like kind of like an escape room kind of thing with Saw. You know what I mean? But obviously minus like the gruesome murders.
Yeah.
But
I don't want to get murdered.
yeah. But if you can like put me in a room and tell me to escape from it, then we could have a
you
good
could just
time.
say it's an escape room.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but speaking of like keeping it Halloween themed, I'm gonna ask you guys a really random question because I think this is an interesting question that I always ask people. But if you guys were to think about it, what's like for me the scariest thing besides racism? The scariest thing for me is always like zombies or aliens.
Okay.
So for you guys, what's like the scariest creature, I guess, that you feel that you would come across that you would be like, oh man, this is my kryptonite here. I'm totally defenseless.
Let me tell you something, Brian.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Danny.
So like,
tell me something.
Sometimes when I'm hanging out with my friends and we're just online on Discord, just messing around.
Right.
And like, yo, let's just play a random scary game. Let's just find a scary game. There's this one scary game called The Mortuary Assistant where you play.
Never heard of that.
It's like indie. It's indie.
Okay.
But you play as a person who is in like a mortuary, and you're like basically preparing when somebody like dies, and you bring them like they're in the fridge looking thing.
Right.
You have to. There's a process to prepare the body for like whatever is gonna happen, whatever the family decides to do with the body, right? And there's a lot of that paranormal stuff in there, and a lot of, for some reason, that particular game and the type of scariness, I guess technically would be ghosts, I guess, categorized as.
I guess paranormal.
I suppose paranormal stuff. And I think that's like that's a game specifically. I remember in my head that's a game was like, yeah, like even when I'm playing a game like Outlast, like, oh, let's play Outlast, but I'll be scared when I'm playing it.
Right.
I would be scared even thinking about playing that game.
Interesting.
For some reason. I think it's the paranormal like aspect.
Now, what's it called again?
It's called The Mortuary Assistant.
The Mortuary. I gotta look this up.
Yeah, Mortuary Assistant.
I've never heard of this.
Is it on PlayStation?
Yeah, like where do you play it?
It's on Steam. I don't know if it's on PlayStation. It's pretty popular. It's been out for like a while now, probably for a year or two. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty good.
About horror games, I did finish one recently that kept me on edge while playing it. It was like, do you guys know what Until Dawn is?
Yes. Didn't they just
it was like recent,
right?
I think. It was actually, I think it was actually this month that it came out.
Yeah.
My friend got it and we played it together. And well, actually, that's kind of a spoiler.
It's all right. Spoiler.
Basically, it was
been
like,
out for a year or two. Anyways, you're good.
Yeah.
So basically, the game is like, that legend, the Wendigo.
Yes.
So it's that they use that name for the creatures, and they're like these creatures. If how do I explain it? Let's say you're trapped in an area, right, for like a very long time with like a group of people, and you're stuck in there for long enough to the point where you start to consider cannibalism. And that's when the Wendigo spirit takes a hold of your body and possesses you. So when you finally resort to eating human flesh,
right,
that's when it fully possesses you, and you start growing fangs, you start getting longer nails, your body becomes as tough as steel, apparently. And they are like these long creatures that are really fast. They could lift at least 700 pounds.
You know what it reminds me of? Do you know who the Shy Guy is?
Yeah,
from Mario.
The SCP.
No, the SCP Shy Guy. No, not the guys from little stubby guys from Mario.
I'm just like,
who wore like little elf masks.
That scares you?
Yeah, I was about to say. I was like,
I mean, those things are pretty freaky. But yeah, continue.
But about that game, I finished it recently. So I guess the thing about that game is that the only way they can't see you is that if you're either really quiet, you have some type of firepower on you, like anything fire related.
Oh, okay.
Or if you don't move at all.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah,
I see.
That's kind of how that
is definitely a creature.
Yeah, that is a creature.
Isn't this game like, and you have to like make choices, right?
Yeah, how I mentioned, you make choices, and these choices will affect you later on in the game.
Yes, gotcha. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, this game also has like a lot of like famous actors like playing some of the lead roles, right?
I think so.
I know like in some of the sequels you had like I forget, like very popular actors. Like I believe the girl from Sweet Life and Zach and Cody, the rich girl. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
You ever seen the Sweet Life of Zach and Cody?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't
Okay,
ever.
okay.
That's Disney, right?
Yeah,
Disney
that's
Channel.
a Disney Channel show.
Didn't have a Disney Channel.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Okay. You know Detective Pikachu?
Yes.
You know the guy who played the son?
Yes.
He was in one of the games.
Yes.
I don't know if it was made by the same creator, but yeah, there was another game called The Quarry, and it got
Yeah.
compared a lot to Until Dawn.
Well, it was made by the same studio. It was made by the same studio,
So.
right?
That's why before Until Dawn, me and my friend tried out that game, and it was actually like pretty good. And since he talked about how Until Dawn was like a really good game, it was actually a really good experience.
They had Rami Malek, the guy who played Freddie Mercury.
Yes.
In that movie, he was in he played a character.
If I could relate this to Halloween in some way, if you guys could dress up as a character from your favorite horror games, who would you be? Like Resident Evil.
That's a great question. For me, my favorite character from Resident Evil is Leon, but I look nothing like Leon, so I don't think I'd be able to pull it off.
I think you could pull off the Resident Evil Village Chris.
Maybe. Yeah.
The beard you got on.
Yeah. So I like Chris too. Like he's cool. So I would probably do Chris.
Like specifically Chris from Village because he has the whole black trench coat.
Yeah. Yes. So probably Chris. So I would do Chris. Yeah.
You?
For me, I don't know. I mean, I think of like usual horror cosplays. There's like a lot of ghost faces. The easy thing is to just put on a outfit like a Freddy mask. You know what I mean? And just kind of go as that because people have made cosplays like Five Nights at Freddy's cosplays where you're like an actual robot.
The whole thing is like looks like an actual suit.
Yeah, I know. Which is like when you know the lore of the games, and especially since I told you the suits can like murder you, horrifyingly. You know, people make them anyways. I mean, obviously they don't make them to kill them, but it's like it's just funny that people do that. But like, so that would be. I think that might be one. Like maybe like a Five Nights at Freddy's character. I don't know. It's either a Ghostface or a Five Nights at Freddy's character.
What about you, Steven?
For me, well, I guess I would say the pig from Dead by Daylight or something like that because Saw did get a game.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to play it.
Thank you so much, Steven, for joining us again for this episode of the podcast where we spoke about. I'm going to go ahead and say, even though this was billed as all Halloween, more so I think it was all horror.
Yeah,
all horror,
or just related. Like Halloween and horror games.
Yeah. And I think that concludes the Compete for Life episode, all things horror, and we will be back in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steven. Thank you, Danny, for having us.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.